What? Opening night. So what? I need to see Paul George score 33 closing night, not opening night. And that's the whole question about this team. Now, do I like what they've added to the team? Do I like Ibaka? Oh, yeah. And we both agreed that Ibaka was an upgrade on Montrezl Harrell, who's a nice player. But Ibaka can also shoot it and can defend. And he's a veteran with championship experience, all that. That's a really nice pickup. They did not get Rondo. They did not get the point guard who can organize that offense. Batum, if a dude like that is interested, right, because he got his money and he went to a place where they weren't going to be competitive and we all forgot about him, and frankly, he didn't play very well. But if he's going to be interested and still has some gas in the tank, that's an interesting pickup. Is that enough to make me think that the Clippers are going to be the biggest threat to the Lakers? When, for example, I saw last year the Clippers got by the Mavericks because and only because Porzingis was unfairly fouled out of a game. The refs threw him out of a game he should not have been thrown out of, and then he got hurt. If Porzingis is healthy, Mavericks are better than the Clippers last year. I watched it, and I picked the Clippers. And I said after that series, Mavericks are a better team than them. Maybe the Nuggets are too, right? Like a team the Clippers actually lost to. Let's see what happens with Porter Jr. I can't say based on day one, when you're not in the playoffs and Paul George shows up, I want to see playoff PG-13 become a compliment, not an insult. Then I'll buy the Clippers.
Well, first of all, I can say that the Clippers are the biggest threat to the Lakers because last night had nothing to do with that. I felt that way coming into the season. And here is the reason why. I don't think we'll ever see Kawhi Leonard and Paul George more motivated with the acquisition of Serge Ibaka and Ty Lue coaching them and having the cachet to hold them accountable, even more so than Doc Rivers. Remember, when Doc Rivers inherited them, he was in his 6th year in Los Angeles. There was questions as to what his future was going to be as the Los Angeles Clippers coach, because sometimes when you're there and you're in a particular place long enough, sometimes they feel they just need a new voice, and you had people close to Ballmer that didn't necessarily want Doc Rivers to be retained. So as a result of that, he walked in the last season with all of that going on. Then you combine that with the bubble and the bubble play because the NBA season was halted. The reality of the situation is that Ty Lue is in a better situation than Doc Rivers was to coach this team. Now, you're Kawhi Leonard. Unlike your first championship in San Antonio, unlike your second championship in Toronto, you are the face of this franchise, meaning these Los Angeles Clippers. They mortgaged the farm in order to get you by giving you what you wanted in terms of acquiring Paul George. So as a result, it's not just Kawhi's responsibility. Paul George, to a degree, is also Kawhi Leonard's responsibility because you asked for all of this stuff. Well, they gave you all the pieces that you needed. What you gonna do about it? You're the one that had the commercial. You're the one that had the crown dangling from the mirror in your car. You're the one that put everybody on notice with your New Balance commercials that you had arrived, and it was a new day as a result that had arrived in Tinseltown. And then you came up short in the Game 7. Now, we can look at Paul George hitting the side of the backboard, which we all brought up, and we can't erase that. But he did drop 33 in Game 6. He did drop 26 in Game 5. It wasn't like he was a flat-out scrub, for crying out loud. He had a bad night in the Game 7, which is not excusable. But it was even worse for Kawhi Leonard because so much more was expected from him, and he was an absolute no-show. MIA, missing in action, couldn't be found, while Jamal Murray was giving him 40. So what I'm saying to you is that with all of that stuff going on, and now LeBron James being a championship in the same building, in the same city, in the same town, with you still having those damn commercials, I think they're highly motivated. And as a result, we're going to see the Clippers come at the Lakers. I think that that's their problem, Max. They wasn't even interested in playing anybody else but the Lakers. The Clippers get up for the Lakers unlike they get up for any other team in the NBA. If you're talking about what could happen to them beforehand, fine. But if you're talking about a matchup face-to-face, you against me, the Los Angeles Clippers are the most significant threat to the Los Angeles Lakers because that's the one team they get up for every night.
Well, I don't know that. I don't even know that that's true, that I would say that they present, like in a matchup, the biggest challenge for the Lakers. I'm very interested, for example, in our game tonight, the Suns and the Mavs, right? I know no Porzingis, but like teams like that, let's see what happens with those guys. Like, as you know, I like the Mavs as my sleeper, but you got to even watch a team like Phoenix. Phoenix is loaded. So I don't know that the Clippers match up best with the Lakers simply because of motivation. I like the Kennard pickup. Like Shamet for Kennard is kind of like the Seth Curry for Richardson trade, right? Like you're giving up maybe better shooting, although both, obviously Kennard can also shoot. You're giving up better shooting for maybe a better player, a guy who's going to get more minutes. Like the Clippers did improve in the offseason, but I don't know to say enough to be better or more dangerous to the Lakers than, say, the Mavericks. When you think of the Mavs, if Porzingis stays healthy, when they're fully loaded, just think of Stephen A., the size and the shooting, where your point guard, basically, point forward, whatever, the guy bringing the ball up in Luka is 6'8". When your two guard, Tim Hardaway Jr., is what, 6'6", 6'7"? When you got guys like Dorian Finney-Smith who can defend and bomb from three, at least last year he was bombing from three at 6'7", 6'8", whatever he is. Maxi Kleber, same thing, can defend and shoot from the outside, 6'10", and then Porzingis at 7'3", who can do all those things too. That might be a tougher matchup for the Lakers than the guys you mentioned, or if Portis Jr. takes the next step. He's awful defensively, but if he even gets a little bit better there, but certainly he should be ascending offensively. I mean, the Clippers couldn't handle those guys. And by the way, the Lakers could, but that was still a team in its embryonic stages developing. What's going to happen this year if they actually come out as a more mature, better team with a legit third option? I don't know the Clippers are the toughest matchup for the Lakers just because they're motivated. I need to see Paul George perform under pressure, period.
Well, if that's the case, I need...
Is no.
What?
The floor is yours.
What? Really? Oh, you know something, Max? Max Kellerman is hilarious. Let me get this straight. The best player in the world, Kawhi Leonard, your guy. The guy that's the best player in the world, Stephen A. I mean, please, he's the man. It's not LeBron. He's not the king. That dude, Kawhi Leonard, who led the Clippers. That's right. Go hide, Max. Wait a minute. Let me put an APB out for Max Kellerman. Where the hell is he? Get your behind back here. Don't hide now. You got to be kidding me. Excuse me? Kawhi Leonard, who just got Serge Ibaka, who still has Paul George. He's got Ty Lue as a new coach. That's right. Show that face, Max Kellerman. Show that face. You got to be kidding me. You're going to sit up here with a straight face? I don't even give a damn about what your answer is. That's right. Ooh, I can't believe him. I can't believe you actually sat there with a straight face and said, not Kawhi Leonard, not Kawhi Leonard. The season hasn't started yet. Preseason hasn't started yet. The Clippers lost a 3-1 lead. They're highly motivated. Kawhi's got something to prove. Ty Lue's his new coach. Paul George got to show that he ain't going to hit the side of backboard from three-point range. And I love Paul George, so I don't like getting on him. Reggie Jackson has been retained. Patrick Beverley is still there. Serge Ibaka has replaced Montrezl Harrell. You're trying to tell me that you don't believe that Kawhi Leonard, your dude, the #1 player in the world, the two-time champion, the two-time finals MVP, that dude does not have he's not the favorite to knock off LeBron. I didn't even sit up there and ask you, is he going to knock off LeBron? I said, should he be the favorite? And your answer is no, Max Kellerman? No? Really? Really?
You said something just now that explains why. You said you like Paul George, you don't want to get on him. That's the reason. If it was Kawhi on a team built that has a similar strength to the Lakers, that's one thing. It is not. Because his second banana, Paul George, goes away in the playoffs. Stephen A., Kawhi needs all the extra credit to be considered better than LeBron. I thought he was going to get it. I thought he was Mr. Game 7, fourth quarter. I seen it. He didn't. He wasn't that this last season. And if he doesn't have that going for him, the clutch thing going for him, I can't put him ahead of LeBron, who's better than everyone else, right? But I thought Kawhi is a two-way player, plus when you need it most, given his age, everything. I was proven wrong when he went away in the fourth quarter against Denver in the playoffs. However, Kawhi is a beast. Kawhi actually had a great playoffs. Kawhi was the reigning finals MVP heading into the season, his second finals MVP. He's a great player in his prime. If he had another player of his caliber, like LeBron does, on his team, and the proper role players around him, I would pick Kawhi to win. He doesn't. If you're second banana, they have 2 superstars on the team. It's really only 1 superstar and 1 star who are always waiting to become a superstar, but he doesn't do it. You brought up hit the side of the rim, had the side of the backboard in game 7, right? In the fourth quarter. Side of the backboard. He's so off, he loses confidence in the moment of truth. How can I say that Kawhi got the best chance? Put Kawhi with another dude like him, the way LeBron's with AD. And then, sure, by the way, Stephen A., even bring in Chris Paul switch teams, right? Bring in a Chris Paul. Bring in a dynamic playmaker to make the offense cohesive. I still would have picked the Clippers. They didn't. I can't.
So just a question, man. So it's Paul George's fault that Kawhi Leonard isn't the kind of leader that can galvanize troops. It's Paul George's fault that Kawhi Leonard is superstar, as much of a superstar player as he is, walks around with such an indifferent mentality, all about making sure he handles his business as an individual, but doesn't necessarily maximize the potential around him. That's Paul George's fault. Was it Paul George's fault that Kawhi Leonard shot 6 of 22 from the field and scored 14 points in a Game 7 after losing a 3-1 lead, but Jamal Murray had 40? That's Paul George's fault, too? I thought that Kawhi was the elite defender. I thought that he was the best player in the world. I thought that he was the ultimate leader. That's what you said. That's what you said. Now, I know you said oops. I understand that.
I didn't say he was the ultimate
I know you said oops. I know you said oops. I think it would have been appropriate. Matter of fact, I got another beef with you, Max. And you know what the other beef with you is? I thought it was an exceptional thing that you did right now, just hiding out of the camera. That's what you should have did after they lost Game 7. My only beef with you is, why didn't you do it then? What you save it for this morning for?
Well, I might be slow, but
Where
I'm
was
not
that
stupid.
Max Kellerman from this morning that was hiding from the camera, hiding away from the camera? Where was that Max Kellerman after Game 7 when Kawhi Leonard shot 6 of 22, finished with 14 points, let Jamal Murray drop 40, damn near average 40 for the series, and oh, by the way, all Max had was a oops. You should have been hiding from the camera that day.
Right.
That's my beef.
Nah, look, here's the bottom line. Kawhi had a bad Game 7. He's had very few bad clutch performances in his career, and he's had more clutch performances than almost anyone, like whoever lived. Like, you look at how many clutch performances Kawhi has had since he was a 22-year-old, before he even knew what he was doing. He wasn't highly touted or anything like that. Since Boardman gets paid out of college, just happy to be drafted and all that stuff. He is a very clutch player. Even clutch players have very bad nights.
Well,
he picked the wrong night to have a bad night. But what I'm saying is, I don't expect a repeat of that from Kawhi. More often than not, he comes through. So then it becomes, what's his supporting cast like? I like Ibaka over Harrell. I think that's a marginal improvement, right? But Stephen A., you and I both know they needed a point guard. It's just the position Kawhi plays. Kawhi can run your offense okay.
Hold on.
He's an above-average passer at this point in his career for a small forward. But he's not right. Rondo or CP3
they wanted
would have been
Rondo,
even better.
but Atlanta offered them about $10 million more. They offered him about $10 million more.
I get
Ships. For some reason, I went deaf. I didn't hear him say the 2 hardest championships in NBA history. With all due respect to the great LeBron James, I think that's one of the most ignorant statements that have ever come out of his mouth. Let's take into account the San Antonio Spurs in 2014 when they went up against Dallas, when they had to go up against OKC with KD and Russell Westbrook, and then they had to go up against Miami for crying out loud. And then not only that, they had Dame and those boys in the second round. Let's look at the 2011 Dallas Mavericks that were underdogs in every series. Let's look at the Houston Rockets in 1995 and how they were underdogs and they were a 6th seed, and they ultimately advanced to the finals and swept Shaq and Penny and those boys. Let's take those things into consideration. But more importantly than anything else, the reason why I use such a strong word like ignorant, especially, and I would usually never associate such a thing with the brilliance of a LeBron James. Sir, what about Bill Russell? You know, one of my boys pointed that out to me yesterday. I didn't see the text until this morning. But Bill Russell won championships in an era when Medgar Evers and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X were assassinated. Bill Russell was a player coach and won back-to-back titles. Bill Russell was a black man playing in Boston and had to endure all the things that he endured in order to win. How can you sit up there and know anything about your history, which I know LeBron knows because he's a savant, and just forget that part? I don't see how you can do that when you talk about your championships and how difficult. Now, if you were just talking about on the court, I guess you could say it's debatable, even though I would say I would beg to differ. But when you talk about just the toughest championships because you want to bring COVID-19 into the equation, Max, or something like that, I just don't know how you can ignore the trials and tribulations that Bill Russell had to endure en route to capturing a championship. That's why he's considered the ultimate champion. It's not just because of the 11 he has. It's because of the duress and the circumstances under which he captured them. And they far exceeded the challenges that LeBron James just went through with COVID-19.
Well, I mean, look, LeBron is he's changing definitions midstream. Number one, I can understand if he says the championship against the Warriors was the toughest. It's a 73-win team. That's the all-time record. They were down 3-1, and obviously they have to play the last game on the road. And it was a tight game, and they held the Warriors, the greatest half-court offense ever to that point in history, to 0 points over the last 4 minutes and change of that game. Stephen A., you and I saw each other at that finals game. We were there and witnessed history that night. So I understand him saying that. And I understand him saying that being in the bubble was, he felt, or others, players he may have talked to felt, was the most stressful or something like that. But it can't be the hardest in the bubble if you win 3-1, 3-1, 4-1, 4-1, 4-2. You know, they never got extended 7. They only got extended 6 against the Heat. And I'm sure it was taxing emotionally. But that goes for every single person in the bubble. And if everyone's taxed the same way, then no one has a disadvantage. In that way, it's not the hardest. It can't be. It may feel really tough. I get that. But he's really talking about two different things. As far as you're talking about Bill Russell's performances as a player coach in trying times is concerned, I agree with that. Also, you might point to the Knicks in 1969, 1970, who, without Willis Reed, remember, he limps onto the court, he hits a jump shot, but Walt Frazier had to go crazy in that series in order for the Knicks to win in 7 games against the Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, Elgin Baylor team, right? Like, you could point to, there are series throughout history that compare to how difficult it was for LeBron in Golden State. And while no one had ever played in a bubble before this past season, the Lakers weren't the only team to do it. In fact, every other team in the bubble had to experience that. So that's my beef with LeBron. He's playing a little fast and loose with definitions,